by the National Assembly talks about us as a Senate being representatives of the county governments and their interest, it doesn't mean that I am the legal representative of the county governments or their lawyers. We are not their lawyers. So I find it extremely disingenuous and very disrespectful for members of this committee to suggest that we can find a way to have a sitting with the county governors so that we force them to withdraw a case that they have filed under their constitutional right to question things in courts of law. So if indeed the entire reason for this mediation is so that the National Assembly can blackmail all of us so that they get what they want, then there is no reason for us to sit here. Honorable Chair, it has become extremely clear that the Division of Revenue now has been taken hostage by the National Assembly, and it will not be released until they get their RMLF money. The chair from the National Assembly doesn't want to mention a fund because he knows this is what they do every single time. The fund he has refused to mention is the CDF. Last time, because there was a court case, they used this process to manipulate and to blackmail all of us so that they get what they want. It is extremely unfair. And because Honorable Undo has taken time to read to me my roles, I also want to remind him that under Article 95(2), the National Assembly is required to resolve issues of concern to the people, not issues of concern to members of the National Assembly. It cannot be that you always front-load issues of CDF and RMLF because they are of concern to members of the National Assembly and not of concern to the people. Even when you are mentioning this issue of the presidential memorandum, you are threatening us that we will not be able to raise 2/3 in both houses. Yet, just last week, a few weeks ago, there was a grave matter here where raising 2/3 of the members of the National Assembly and the Senate was not a problem. Where have those 2/3 gone? No wonder the public are criticizing us, that when it is issues to do with us, politicians, it's very easy for us to raise these numbers. But when it is questions to do with the public, Honorable Oundo, in your county in Busia, the question of CHPs, the question of the state of healthcare is a matter of concern to the people. The question of water in Nairobi is a question of concern to the people. It should be the foremost thinking of any member of the National Assembly because that is what 95(2) requires you to do. So, Chair, me, I was hoping, because the tone that had been taken, I have not finished. And you are in our chamber, you should also allow us to feel that we are playing from the home ground. This is our home ground. Honorable Chair, let me finish. We are a home ground, how do you know so? Chair, now I've even lost my train of thought. I had not finished, you know. So I had seen some light at the end of the tunnel from the presentation by Honorable Ochieng that the issues were identified. Can we begin by being explained to, as a Senate, the thinking behind your amendment to Section 3 of the Act? Why is it, as a principle now, as members of Parliament, can Parliament take a position and say, this is going to be the principle going forward? If there's a shortfall in national revenue, who should bear that responsibility? So that next year and the year after that is not an issue. And we don't fight about that. Then we move progressively the way that he had listed those issues. He has said, and we had acknowledged, those of us from the Senate, that this issue of the RMLF is important to the members of the National Assembly. We had agreed that we will have to find a way to make a statement about that. How is that not enough, Honorable Oundo? As an assurance from you that we also consider this issue a big issue. But it is a personal issue. It's a personal issue to members of the National Assembly. It is not a matter that is personal to the people. So, Honorable, no, he's disrupting my train of thought. Honorable Chair, so can we be told now by the members of the National Assembly, are they saying that unless we have a solution, unless we assure Honorable Undo that I'll go and find the Council of Governors and tell them to withdraw their case, that this mediation cannot go on? Is that what they are saying? Because if that is what they are saying, then we can also draw certain lines in the sand. We will not be used to blackmail other institutions that we have no control over.
Honorable Undo.
First of all, I want to put it on record. RLMF is not for members of Parliament. CDF is not for the members of Parliament. The roads are not for members of Parliament. They don't use the roads exclusively. They are for the people of Kenya. CDF is not petty cash for members of Parliament. It is for the people of Kenya, the poor boys and girls in the various schools in this country. who make sure they get classrooms, they get dormitories, they get laboratories, they get bursary. We need to take this notion out of senators that CDF, RLMF is petty cash for members of parliament. It is not. It is for the people of Kenya. Would then as well argue that the money given to the counties is for the governors, so that they can carry chairs with them wherever they go, carpets wherever they go. We're not going to that point of view. We are simply saying we need to resolve the issues at hand. And we are telling you, senators, we need to look at the end of this mediation. This mediation is not ending here. Finally, it has to go to the National Assembly. And we are being very honest with you. Yeah, but finally, remember, at the end of the day, the final place is the National Assembly. If, as we clearly say, if we fail to agree, we read an existing law which will serve for the rest of the financially. So we need to be very realistic and be very accommodative to each other. We are simply saying, when you come to equity, you must come with clean hands, period.
Because I know we are responding back and forth. The co-chair presented some issues, and he made reference to the National Assembly severally, where he sits as a chair of budget. It's very important to have something clear. You know, for me from morning, my discussion has been objectivity. And you may not see the point, but as we continue, you will see the point of that objectivity and how important it is. The jurisdictional responsibility of this committee is limited to division of revenue. Number one. Number two, the decision by the committee on numbers will definitely give rise to the need to do Supplementary 2 and Appropriation Act. Nothing is cast in stone. It's going to happen one way or the other. Supplementaries have been prepared on flimsy grounds in the past in this country, and it has been passed. But 47 county governments being impacted, necessitating a supplementary budget is not something unforeseen. Number three, the precarious situation that we discussed is a reality of the law and procedures. It is what it is. Number four, so that it's very clear, I was hoping that we do what is in our mandate as a mediation committee on the amendment of DORA, so that then if we execute what is in our mandate, we worry about the second stage, which is now both houses. And I'm very sorry, Honorable Undo and my co-chair has kept on referring, the buck stops at the National Assembly. If that was the case, we would not be seated in this mediation. You would have ruled on what you rule and passed what you see fit, and then it passes. The reason why we are here is it will go back to both houses, the Senate and the National Assembly. Meaning, even if the National Assembly agrees, passes, refuses, it will still have to come back to this house. And without us agreeing and finding a point of convergence, we are not going anywhere. So this is how the Constitution is framed, unfortunately. Now, unfortunately, for the views you hold in terms of it goes to National Assembly, if it doesn't pass, then that is the end of it in that issue. Now, division of revenue, and I'm only concentrating on statement of fact, nothing emotional, nothing about who feels what. Division of revenue governs the vertical share of revenue between the national government and county government. RMLF is a product of a fund legislated by an act of parliament collected by Kenya Revenue Board to be appropriated between national trunk roads and county roads. And it has to be very clear in terms of these are all facts, not as to whether I feel the National Assembly should be doing the county.
Anxiety. But I want to calm your nerves. We are very good people. We are very reasonable people here in the Senate. I also want to take this opportunity to let you know that this is the first time that I'm interacting with members of the National Assembly in a formal setting such as this. Because it has also been my desire to understand how you people process things. how you understand things, your view of the world. I am happy that my member of parliament from Busia has brought up the issue of clean hands. He's asking us to speak to governors. I don't know if I can also give him a message to the president, because under the constitution, it is the National Assembly that oversees the national government. And I am sure that is not the spirit of this conversation. Honorable Chair, also let me disclose that as a senator, I feel at a great disadvantage sitting with members of the National Assembly who, I believe, have more information than I do when it comes to the budget making process. And especially the chair of budget being here, I have heard you throwing around numbers and figures. I don't know where you're getting those things from. I'm sure you'll tell me, because you've done this thing all your life, you know those figures at the fingertips. But here in the Senate, we insist on documents. When you make a reference to a figure, you must show us, because I will be very open with you. We don't trust you. We don't trust members of the National Assembly because we believe you have more information than us and you're not putting all the cards to the table. I understand why this issue of the RMLF is very touchy to the members of the National Assembly. And Honorable Undo, you know me. I am a very straightforward person. I know why you people are upset with this question of RMLF. But if we get into those things, I don't believe we are going to get to where we are. First of all, Chair, we had struggled here in the Senate with the provisions of Article 218. And I am happy that the party leader for MDG is my senior-in-law. Yes, maybe he can guide me on the understanding of the National Assembly of Article 218, because for us in the Senate, we started our objections to the amendments proposed by the National Assembly from that particular article, that we believe that the Constitution anticipates only one annual division of and allocation of revenue bill, only one in a financial year. So that if you come back to us with anything else you are calling an annual division of revenue bill, we have every right to reject it. Number two, Honorable Chair, we are persuaded by constitutional institutions who know better than us. Here in the Senate, we are guided by the Commission on Revenue Allocation, because they have the tools to be able to see where people are hiding figures. Because when the chair throws around figures like that, I know he wants to confuse lawyers like myself, who have never seen that budget, the national budget, or to intimidate members of the Senate who might not have interacted with these figures. But those commissions exist to guide institutions such as the Senate. So when you are reeling off these numbers, Honorable Chair, we want to understand where are you getting these figures, yet the CRA has given us a different perspective. Year on year, if you compare the growth in the national government allocation vis-a-vis the growth in the allocation to the counties expressed as a percentage, even in this financial year before the things you said happened, the growth in the national government allocation of over 371 billion represents 17.1%, and compare that to the 4.3% marginal increase that you had sent to the county governments is a problem for us, and maybe this forum will provide an opportunity for you to educate us on the thinking in the National Assembly. As a fundamental principle, the Senate will never in any financial year agree to a reduction of the amount below the previous financial year. I think that is something we must understand from the beginning. So if we were at 385 last year, I want to know the thinking behind the National Assembly deciding that we can actually defund counties by returning the figure below what we achieved in the last financial year. You have spoken about the finance bill of 2024. I am also aware, Honorable Chair, that the courts have actually upheld the finance bill of 2023, and it is what is in operation. So we want to understand the justification of you going below 385 in your proposals, below what was actually there in the financial year previous to this. So, Honorable Chair, if you address some of those concerns, and we ask for objectivity, because without objectivity we will not be able to move. I'm not very familiar with the standing orders in the National Assembly, but the preliminary objection that has been brought by the Member of Parliament from Soy, I tried to help you in the opening remarks. Our standing orders require that if you are going to raise an objection on sub judice, it is you to bring the evidence, that is the actual pleadings in the case, and any judgments or rulings that have been given, so that we are able to distinguish the matter from any other matter. Because in my understanding, the RMLF dispute is a different dispute regarding a different act of parliament. This discussion here is a discussion of the money. And we know, Honorable Soy, why. I have said we know why you are raising this objection on RMLF. So it is not the Senate. It is not the Senate. Honorable Chair, the MP, Mheshimiwa Undo, knows that even his governor, I don't speak to him. I have actually been stoned by his governor in Busia. And we don't have engagements every day with our governors. The last time I saw my governor is, I think, almost 6 months ago. So we do our job here, given under the mandate we've been given by the Constitution. It is not necessarily that we are representatives of governors or that they are our friends or that we talk every day. But just delivering a message, I am sure you and me will be at a forum this weekend. And even you can tell him that you are unhappy with the fact that the Council of Governors chose to take this matter to the courts. We have various avenues to deliver that message. It cannot be a hindrance to this process. Finally, Chair, if you go to the report of the recommendations that came from the Commission on Revenue Allocation, in fact, some of the things that I have said arose from their recommendations when they appeared before our Committee on Finance and Budget, that there are certain expenditures that are expected of county governments that arose out of implementation of national government programs. And this is where you came in. You are the ones who passed these laws, Honorable Chair, in the National Assembly. And they have bequeathed upon county governments a certain financial and fiscal responsibility. Here in Nairobi, and I suspect even in all our constituencies, if you go back home and you are telling the community health promoters that we are going to cut the allocation to CHPs in this financial year, all of us here as politicians are going to have certain difficulties because these people are already in place. I remember there was a math, Honorable Ali Roba, I don't remember the exact figures, but that the proposal from the National Assembly would render almost 25% of the CHPs, was it? It will affect the salaries of about 25% of the CHPs, 25,000 CHPs. So, as Senator Veronica has said, for me, first of all, because I said I don't trust the national government, and when I say that, I mean I also don't trust the National Assembly. When you say that the national government is going to take a dent of 385, I need to be shown. I don't believe it. I need to be shown these are the programs in the national government that are going to be cut that add up to 385. For us, we have been open. You have seen in the brief, this non-discretionary expenditure, and Senator Eddy also went through them on CHPs, for instance, on county aggregation packs. We can tell you specifically the line items for which we believe there is really no wiggle room. So you also tell us, take us through the budget of the national government and tell us this 385, we had planned to do this road in Kiharu, we are no longer going to do that road. And then we will be able to be on the same page as Honorable Undo has insisted. We proceed on the basis of honesty. We put all the cards on the table. I thank you.
And
Okay.
Chair,
Just
sorry, just to also say.
Kidogo, Veronica.
Like mediators. And we know clearly there is something that there has some disagreements. Because failure to do that, remember whatever we are discussing here, we are not the final arbiters. It has to go to especially the National Assembly. And therefore it is important that even as we give our points here, have in mind when you will be in the plenary defending the position we are taking today, so that we are conclusive. And the reason why, because the beauty is that the people on this side, all of them are politicians. And we know for sure that the issue before us is both an issue of public resources in terms of DORA, Division of Revenue, but we also know that we are politicians. So let us strike a balance. We don't go to the extreme of either, so that at one point we are taking care of when we'll be tabling in the National Assembly, but on the other side taking care of that we need to unlock resources for our county governments to pay salaries, for our county government to run, because the people they are serving are the same people we are serving in our various constituencies and counties. And therefore, without wanting to go back to what I said before, from where we sit as the National Assembly, there is only one team here representing the people of Kenya and looking for the very much welfare, the optimal point of serving the people of Kenya. And therefore, even as we debate, because I am saying this and preempting, because I've attended other mediations. So I would not want to have a mediation like the one I had last time, which was very, very hectic. Whereas it yielded something, but it was, it was very tense and also very, very not much cordial. Yes. So if we can be able to find a balance where we are looking for the welfare, the general welfare, the better. So I don't want to talk much. We want to open this plenary. And members don't feel restricted from anything. Because I was consulting with the chair here, it is better we bring all the points in this smaller group than open up a much bigger debate in the respective houses when we have an opportunity inside here to crack some nuts. So don't feel restricted, because that is the basis of mediation. Let me start with, if you allow me, Migori County.
Okay, Chair, thank you for that clarification. I was a bit worried when your co-chair, Senator Roba, indicated that my preliminary objections might be in the wrong place. But since it is something we have actually dealt with the DORA bill in the National Assembly, and the feeling, you see, at the end of the day, the discussion cannot be limited. And although you might see it as if it is something that can be taken at the back of the banner to be discussed later, I can tell you, the National Assembly, that item I had raised, is so weighty that we can lose the substance of what we are discussing. So that's why I was urging that before we even look at the item, at the substantive agenda, we actually take some time to see how we can clean our hands, how the governors who are the county government can be able to clean their hands and be able to note that as arms of government, as the local government, they need of taking another arm of government to court, and we have all conservatory orders running left and center, and the constitution is made in such a way that those issues, we have forums that we can be able to address. We have even the summit, which the president is aids that can be able, that those issues can be able to address. And then you also don't. I would like to urge the governors through you as a Senate who are the who are their representative to tell them. You know, when you want to milk a cow, you don't go caging. You give it nice food so that you can be able to milk. We actually appropriate these funds, but there are so many instances where governors are actually fighting the National Assembly. They expect that the National Assembly will support the county government, which is our duty to do so, without having that feeling that actually there is something that county government is fighting in the National Assembly. So it is a substantive matter that I can tell you, if we are able to address, then it will be able to unlock other issues. So don't take it as a non-issue. It's a very big issue as a National Assembly. So from the members of National Assembly, I hold the view that let us discuss the issue of conservatory orders on RMLF. We see if governors can be able to withdraw the court case, so that we give them time, even if up to Monday. Monday you can come up with the report, and we move on now looking at the figures that the chair had indicated. Thank you.
Honorable Chair.
Honorable Andy Gesheru. Yes, Vero, you know you come from my county. Gesheru, is a point of order? Or let's move to Gesheru, then we...
Chair, I want to start with the issue that the honorable member of SOI is bringing. I want them to see me.
By the way, Honorable Fatuma, sorry again for interrupting. You may choose to stand or sit.
Yes.
I think it depends on that.
Chair, you know, I do empathize with the issue that the honorable member of SOI has brought up. And I want to tell the honorable member of SOI that even us at the Senate, the governors fight us. Okay? So it's not only the members of the National Assembly that are being fought by the governors. It is also us. But still we have remained faithful to our duty under Article 96 to keep on fighting for counties. However, I wanted to plead with you that there is actually a committee that has been formed on mediation on the issues that are going to canvass the additional revenue issues, which is why I think that the issue of RMLF can be exhaustively and meaningfully be explored. Where we are sitting today, I think we will give a lot of service and a lot of meaning to Article 72 of the Constitution if we canvass on this issue of DORA. Because if we try to deal with the issue of RMLF in this forum, I don't think we can even exhaustively be able to deal with it. So I do understand that it's an important one. It came, Chair, if you remember, it came the other time when we were having the meeting in the previous mediation. But I want to request him that we let that issue be canvassed more properly, even when we've got more data in the committee that is just coming on additional revenue allocation. But that said, Chair, if you allow me, I just wanted to reflect, maybe not contribute now, but reflect on what Lucy has shared with us on what this container is. Because I want to frame it as an issue of principle that can be able to guide all of us. The number one principle, Chair, is on the issue that has been raised where the bill from the National Assembly sought to delete Section 5 in the previous DORA. Chair, if you look at the way that section is framed, this issue that when there is any shortfall, then the number one, that the counties must bear some form of this, I think, Chair, is something that as an assembly, that is both National Assembly and the Senate, is something that we must caution. Because counties, unlike any other forum nationally, have got no any other way of raising resources, alternative resources. The national government has got a myriad of ways, including borrowing internationally money in terms of filling in the gap. But Chair, there's also an issue that came from that proposal from the National Assembly that I feel like was a little bit dangerous for all of us as the legislatures, which you are proposing a particular percentage for which the counties must then be able to bear. Chair, there are two problems with this. Number one problem is that we, both you and us, the National Assembly and the Senate, will end up abdicating our role of legislation in such a time that we have got a distress, so that it will be the Treasury that will be able to dictate what that difference looks like, if you look at the way that particular clause was framed. And then number two, if you put a number like up to 17%, for instance, right now, the reduction that we have proposed in the National Assembly is saying something about 380 billion. Chair, that is barely 6% of the gap that you have given with that 17%. So it means that if you were to go and have somebody in the National Treasury who then takes a entire percentage to, let's say, even 15%, they will take 600 million out of county budgets. And that would mean that you will go even lower to even previous allocations to county. So I wanted to beseech you, as a matter of principle, that on that clause, I think we should agree, before we talk about substantive monies, that that clause is not a good clause for legislatures. in general, Senate in particular, and National Assembly also in particular. Then lastly, Chair, on the substantive issue around the revenue, the allocation that had come from the National Assembly, Chair. Chair, you have spoken very well that you have got the counties at heart. But Chair, if you remember in the previous financial year, the counties got about 385 billion. The proposal here is to give a 380 billion. Chair, this in a classical language would basically mean defunding counties. And up and above this, Chair, you know when we were exploring this issue, Chair, we talked about discretionary and non-discretionary expenses that counties do face, Chair. Unfortunately, Chair, as we speak right now, the 400 billion that you and I sat in the mediation up to late and talked about, we could barely even fund non-discretionary expenses of the county, Chair. Chair, if I might remind you very fast, so I can give other members a chance. Chair, housing levy deductions is something that has been adopted in policy. There is nothing that counties can be able to put any wiggle room about it, and that is about 4 billion that they have got no any other place of getting it, Chair. Chair, we have got the National Social Security Fund, which is coming also to about 3 billion, that there is no any room counties can be able to even figure out how they can be able to get it from anywhere. Remember, I just told you that counties cannot raise money in any other way. Chair, KIPES, which was a commitment by both counties and the national government. In fact, this was a project of national government that they shared with the counties. Chair, we had about 11.7 billion already committed. Projects are on the ground. Projects can end up stalling. Chair, you know the issue of pending bills, it has been a big issue here. Here we have got a place where we have got contractors of counties on the ground. Commitments have already been made. Totally no way, no any legal room on that expense, Chair. Now, Chair, you remember also, we had community health promoters, which was a budget that was coming to 3.2 billion. Chair, these are people from your village, from my village, who have gone without money a number of times. They are community volunteers, community health volunteers. And the national government adopted all of them to the fact that there was a commitment that was made there, Chair. And there, Chair, lastly, we had the Social Health Insurance Fund, which was about 2.7 billion. Chair, when we met here for mediation, we really struggled to come from 315 billion, and you met us in between there with 400 billion. So, Chair, if we again now go and slash out of the 400 billion, 20 billion, Chair, is this not equal to defunding counties? It will not just be about the issue of managing a fiscal problem or a fiscal deficit at a national level, but it will be an issue of literally defunding counties, which has got a serious critical problem. So, Chair, I beseech you that let us try and get a way of dealing with this issue on MDS at a national level, and let us just give counties the 400 billion. I thank you, Chair.
If you allow, we go to Honorable Veronica, then we go to Dr. Odo.
Maybe, Chair, before that, I don't know, not to question the Chair, but I raised a primary objection, but I've seen Honorable Senator has gone into substantive matter without my objections being heard and determined, so that we can move in a sequence that is orderly.
Okay, I think the chair guided that we can discuss all these issues. I think what the Honorable just suggested is we allow it to the next, but it does not stop any of our members to be able to raise any other issue and continue. So, you know, if we don't move systematically, Honorable Member from Soy, the challenge we are going to face is that because parliamentary calendar is set, mediation committees has been formed for division of revenue. There is mediation committee to be formed by the National Assembly. The Senate has already formed on county additional allocation, where the subject matter that you are discussing is a substantive issue of concern, then we are going to lose the track of discussion if we are going to discuss something that another committee is going to discuss. I'm not looking at it in any way that this is something light. It's something very heavy, you know, both for county government and for National Assembly. Whatever wisdom that informed them to make that decision, it must be weighty on their part. But the only issue I want to request and you is that because we have 2 mediation committees, can we allow each mediation committee to do its responsibility as assigned? Thank you.
Allow me.
Just a minute, Daktari.
Yeah, yes.
Daktari, if you allow members, because it's important to say as it is, when we come to such a forum like now, we are doing 2 things, and that is the reality. We are looking for a solution, but also must be seen to look for it. And in that regard, therefore, we are talking to ourselves here to make a decision, but we are also talking to other stakeholders to understand the issue. And the stakeholders here is not just governors. The stakeholders is also people who have not been paid for months, for example, in our county governments. Stakeholders are Kenyans. And therefore, if you allow me, Honorable DK, because we are taking minutes, we are unanswered, let's not be conclusive on any matter. What I mean is that the point Honorable Dr. Audo would have is talking both to this mediation committee, but talking to other stakeholders. And therefore, in that regard, I would request we open the debate and say as it is, as I keep saying, so that after all is said and done, we have a solution. And a solution, I am convinced, because of our mediations, is not here. The solution is after here. And therefore, let us act at the back of our mind when you are acting and speaking. Speak having the House in mind. Speak having the stakeholders in mind. But also, don't limit your debate to the solution of this meeting. Expound it also to other stakeholders so that they understand where every person is coming from. So if you allow Honorable DK, we have Honorable Veronica, Dr. Udo, then we go another round.
Honorable Chair, let me first give a comment on the preliminary issue that has been raised by our colleague from the National Assembly, the MP for Soi. First of all, this is a mediation committee that has been appointed or nominated by the respective houses. It has a mandate, a defined mandate. And the defined mandate is to discuss the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, the National Assembly Bills number 8 of 2024. Unless that mandate is revised to introduce another mandate to mediate on another issue, I think the committee might be restrained to keep within the parameters of the terms of reference. So when you are considering that issue, while I understand that issue is very important, we might be moving beyond the mandate of this mediation if we move beyond the parameters of what we have been appointed to do. So I don't know whether we want to go that direction, but that issue, which is important, can inform certain factors that could be decided here. But it cannot be discussed formally within this mandate. This mandate has to deal with the figures that have been laid out and how this reduction of 400.12 billion to 380 billion has been calculated, and the formula that has been used, and the purpose and the intent for which it has been reduced. And having said that, Honorable Chair, the other thing I would want to say is that when you come to a mediation, it's different from an arbitration. An arbitration is a situation where you have an arbitrator making the decision. A mediation brings together parties on equal basis, both houses on equal basis, to discuss the issues and then write the judgments themselves. Both parties have the opportunity to be judges on the issue. So I want to believe the people who've been nominated to this mediation panel, should be in a position to decide, maybe even within an hour, how we deal with this division of revenue. But having said that, Honorable Chair, the one area we need to be very cautious about is reduction of any revenue that is going to the county now. While the Constitution has provided for a minimum of 15% of the national gross revenue being sent to counties, we should be very, very, very cautious if this party decides that what has already been allocated, for instance, from 400 billion, should be reduced to 380 billion. That's a very heavy reduction. And I'm looking at the many counties that have been crying for pending bills to be paid, Honorable Chair. If you look at a county like Nairobi, which has had one of the heaviest pending bills that have not been paid to the suppliers, it goes directly into the welfare of all Kenyans, Honorable Chair. For those people, the chain effect, you know, the supply chain, which has been impacted, Chair, by those pending bills having not been paid for years by a government, is not, it doesn't reflect well at all for our nation. And if you look at how the bills are expended in the county assemblies, Honorable Chair, one of the expenditure in any of those county assemblies is human capital. So when people are not paid, Honorable Chair, and we are talking about, you know, allowing members or allowing citizens to enjoy Article 43 of the Constitution, and we find that staff salaries have not been paid, basic taxes that are supposed to be deducted, or deductions that are supposed to be done under the human resource expenditure or establishment have not been paid. It looks like very poor management or physical or lack of physical discipline somewhere, Honorable Chair. So I want, as we discuss this, because some of us are not members of the finance committees, we've been drawn from different committees. I want you to address the membership on where else monies can be reduced except from the counties. Map out the options. Tell us in this budget, as we do this reduction and as we look for how we reduce 20 billion, what are the other options of where this 20 billion could be taken from? Then we will be able to analyze and assess the prioritization of what we need to get more. Honorable Chair, some of us who are very basic in financing, we have the basics of it. Even in a home situation, we look at the bill that is so critical that needs to be paid. So you are going to tell us where else this money can be reduced except from the county. I would have been very happy with the court chairs if they were actually coming in and saying, let's work on this amendment to add in another 5 billion to the counties so that they can pay off those pending bills, or so that maybe they can give an increase of, say, 5% to employees to cope up with what the deductions they have to pay now. But Honorable Chair, if we box ourselves to just the reduction, while we could rework our budgets or maybe postpone things that could wait, I do not know whether we will be doing the right thing. So let's lay down the principles first. Give us a scenario mapping as the chairs of these respective committees in Senate and National Assembly. Then we'll be able to say that then us as Senate, we can seed 5 billion. Instead of 20, we can seed 5 billion, or we can seed 10 billion plus or minus on that budget. That would be my take, Chair.
Dr. Odo, then.
Chairs, you say I didn't go to the law school like my SG or the party leader of MDG, but I remember those one statement used to be told that whoever comes to equity must come with clean hands. And that's why we are asking the senators in the House here that whoever comes to equity must come with clean hands. Article 96 of the Constitution, Senate represents the counties and serves to protect the interest of the counties and their governments. Senate cannot run away from its responsibility of dealing with the counties and the county governments. Cannot run away. That's why we are sending you that whoever comes to equity must come with clean hands. We are sending you, you need to go back to the government saying the constitution mandates us to represent you. We are back here. We have a message from the National Assembly and from the government of Kenya, the executive, that whoever comes to equity must come with clean hands, come to this negotiation with clean hands. The Council of Governors are not here with us. They have not sent you to represent them in this mediation committee with clean hands. You can't ask for this, and then you are the same people who are throwing mud on other sources of funds for purpose of developing even those areas that in the rural areas. That's the first point. That's our first point of request, and that's our point, a preliminary objection, that it will be a terrible waste of time for us to deal with people who are not genuine in dealing with the matters at hand. Senator Veronica, a fundamental issue, that where will the governors get money to plug in the deficit? And again, based on Article 96, you represent the counties and their governments. You need to have asked the governors, show us your expenditure framework and pick out the areas of wastage and deal with those wastages. You could easily cover this shortfall, the so-called shortfall, from eliminating the wastages. On source revenue. For example, senators, where will the county government pay bursaries? Yet is not part of the responsibility under the fourth schedule of the Constitution. That's why we are saying we are not in this mediation with the clean hands. We need to come to this mediation with the clean hands. That's why we are asking the senators, you need to go back and have a candid discussion with the Council of Governors before we can proceed or continue with this mediation process. Thank you.
Before I go to Honorable Makali Muru, let's come to the city, Nairobi City Senator, my brother Edwin Sifuna.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, you know, your remarks